My name is Claire Mitchell. I'm 29 years old. 3 months before my wedding, I found them tangled in my fiancé's sheets, my sister Valerie, and the man I was supposed to marry, Daniel. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I quietly closed the door, went home, and started planning the perfect wedding. Because I realized something they never expected. Betrayal is only powerful if the victim stays silent. So I did the unthinkable. I asked Valerie to be my maid of honor. "You're my sister," I said, hugging her with a smile. Who else could stand beside me? She cried happy tears. Daniel looked relieved. They thought I forgave them. They were wrong. On my wedding day, as the guests raised their glasses, I took the microphone and said, "Before we celebrate my marriage, let's toast to the couple who made it possible, Valerie and Daniel." The room froze. Then I pressed play, and the recording of their affair, planned in detail during my bachelorette party, filled the chapel. This wasn't a wedding. It was a reckoning. In our family, Valerie was always the golden child. Charming, reckless, forgiven before she even apologized. I was the reliable one, the planner, the peacekeeper, the one who cleaned up everyone else's messes. When I got engaged to Daniel, a respected architect, my parents called it the union we always hoped for. But within weeks, Valerie began helping with the wedding, choosing dresses, booking venues, even sleeping in his guest room to save money. I saw the signs, the late-night texts, the way he'd stiffen when she touched his arm. But I said nothing, because I was learning something dangerous. Silence can be a weapon. If you're watching this and have ever been the forgiving one in your family, the daughter who stays quiet, the sister who takes the blame, you're not weak. You're waiting. So many of you have shared your stories, from Seattle, Dallas, Miami, Boston, and every message reminds me, the truth doesn't need permission to surface. If this story grips you, I ask 3 things. Like this video, subscribe, tell me your city and state in the comments. Because here, every voice is a match, and every wedding can become a funeral for lies. Now, take a breath. What follows isn't drama. It's justice in white. Valerie and I shared a childhood, but not an identity. She was a storm, wild, magnetic, forgiven for every broken rule. I was the anchor, steady, predictable, expected to hold everyone together. My parents called it balance. I called it survival. When I brought Daniel home for the first time, Valerie lit up like she'd won a prize. "He's perfect, Claire," she gushed, touching his arm a beat too long. He smiled politely, but I saw it, the flicker in his eyes. Not attraction, recognition, like he'd already imagined this moment. Their affair didn't start the night I found them. It started the day I said yes to his proposal. That's when Valerie decided I wasn't worthy of him. "You're too serious," she told me once, adjusting my engagement ring like it didn't belong on my finger. "Daniel needs someone who lives a little." I noticed the shift slowly. Daniel canceled our date nights to help Valerie move. He started using her perfume, jasmine, the same scent my mother wore, the one that made me feel like a child. And then came the texts. Not love notes. Logistics. "She's picking out lace for the dress. Keep her busy Saturday." I confronted him only once. "Are you sleeping with my sister?" I asked, voice calm over morning coffee. He laughed, kissed my forehead. "Don't be paranoid, Claire. She's your sister." But his eyes darted to the window, where Valerie was gardening in a dress I'd never seen her wear before. My dress. That's when I stopped fighting. I started planning. I asked Valerie to be my maid of honor at Sunday brunch, over mimosas and croissants. Her eyes welled up. "Really? After everything?" she asked, as if she were the wronged one. "You're my family," I said, squeezing her hand. Who else would I trust? Inside, I was already drafting the guest list, making sure the wedding planner, the photographer, and the judge were all people I'd vetted personally. I let Daniel book the honeymoon suite in Cabo. I let Valerie choose my veil. I smiled when they accidentally showed up at the same coffee shop, laughing like old friends. Every move they made I logged. Every lie I recorded. Not with rage, with precision. The night before the bridal shower, I found Daniel's phone unlocked on the kitchen counter. A message from Valerie. After Saturday, she'll never suspect a thing. Just keep her distracted during the vows. I didn't delete it. I screenshot it. Then I made him his favorite pasta, just like always. They thought I was broken, that I'd swallow the betrayal to keep the family intact. But I wasn't swallowing. I was preparing. Because in my family, the golden child always wins. Until the quiet one changes the rules. The bridal shower was held at Valerie's penthouse, a gift from our father for her 30th birthday. She'd insisted on hosting it. "Your wedding, my treat," she'd said, batting her lashes. What she didn't know was that I'd already wired the venue fee to the caterer myself. Every dollar had to trace back to me. Guests arrived in pastel dresses, laughing over mimosas. Valerie played the perfect hostess, refilling glasses, adjusting flower arrangements, whispering to Daniel in the corner. I watched them from the kitchen, slicing cake with surgical calm. The games began. Guess the groom's favorite meal. How she said yes. Then came the envelope game. Guests wrote marriage advice on slips of paper to be read aloud. Valerie collected them, smirking as she sorted through the stack. That's when I stood. "Before we read those," I said, "I have a gift for my maid of honor." The room fell quiet. I walked to Valerie, holding a small velvet box. "For everything you've done for me," I said, voice thick with fake emotion. She opened it slowly. Inside wasn't jewelry. It was a USB drive on a silver chain. "What is this?" she asked, confused. "A backup," I said, "of all our memories." Then I turned to the projector I'd insisted on renting. "Let's watch." Before she could stop me, I plugged in the drive. The screen lit up with footage, Valerie and Daniel in his apartment, 2 weeks prior. "Once she says I do, the prenup kicks in," he said, pouring wine. "Her trust fund releases. We'll have everything." Valerie laughed. "And she thinks I'm doing this out of sisterly love." The room gasped. Valerie lunged for the laptop. But I'd anticipated that. The real drive was in my pocket. What she'd just seen was a decoy, a snippet I'd edited to look real, but without legal weight. Just enough to humiliate, not enough to escape. "It's a prank," she cried, face red. "Claire's been stressed. She's messing with us." Some guests chuckled nervously. Daniel patted her back, glaring at me. But I just smiled. "Of course it's a prank," I said. "Silly me." That night, Daniel confronted me. "What the hell was that?" he demanded. I poured us both whiskey. "A warning," I said. "If you think I'm crazy enough to fake that, imagine what I'll do if you go through with Saturday." He left without another word. But I knew. He'd still walk down that aisle. And so would she. Because by then, they were too deep to turn back. The morning of the wedding dawned gray and heavy, like the sky knew what was coming. I sat in the bridal suite, calm as stone, while my hair stylist worked in silence. Valerie burst in an hour late, flustered. "Traffic was hell," she said, avoiding my eyes. I handed her her maid of honor dress, a custom silk gown, the exact shade of champagne she'd chosen. "You look beautiful," I lied. She hugged me, trembling. "I'm so sorry about the shower," she whispered. "I should have known you'd never do that." "You're my sister," I said. "I'd never hurt you." At the chapel, guests murmured about the storm clouds. Daniel stood at the altar, adjusting his tie, eyes scanning the crowd like a man waiting for the other shoe to drop. I walked down the aisle slowly. Not to him. Past him. The officiant began. "We are gathered here today." I let him get to the vows. Daniel took my hands, voice steady. Daniel, take you, Claire." That's when I pulled away. "Actually," I said, stepping to the mic, "before we proceed, I'd like to thank my maid of honor, Valerie, for standing by me through everything." The room turned. Valerie stood, confused. "She's been so supportive," I continued, especially during the nights Daniel spent working late at her apartment. A beat of silence. Then, "Oh, and thank you both for planning my funeral in Cabo. Sweet of you to pick a place I've always loved." Daniel lunged for the mic. But the doors opened. 2 men in suits entered, private investigators I'd hired. They handed envelopes to the judge, the wedding planner, my father. "While you were picking out centerpieces," I said, voice ringing clear. I was collecting evidence. I pressed play on my phone. The real recording filled the chapel. After the ceremony, we'll say she had a breakdown. The prenup voids if she's unstable. And the trust fund, ours. She'll be too broken to fight. Valerie collapsed. Daniel shouted, "It's not what it sounds like." But no one moved. Because in that moment, the bride didn't need a groom. She had truth. And truth doesn't wear white. It wears black. The wedding became a courtroom before the cake was cut. The judge, my father's old law partner, opened the envelope I'd given him. Inside, forged documents, bank transfers, and a signed affidavit from Daniel's therapist confirming he discussed manipulating Claire's trust fund in sessions. Daniel didn't deny it. He just stared at me, pale. "You set us up," he whispered. I shook my head. I just stopped pretending. Valerie sobbed in the corner, mascara streaking her face. "You ruined everything," she wailed. But it wasn't me who ruined it. It was her, choosing greed over sisterhood, lust over loyalty. My father tried to intervene. "This is a family matter," he boomed. But the judge cut him off. "Not when fraud and conspiracy are involved, Richard." For the first time in my life, I saw fear in my father's eyes. Within 48 hours, Daniel's architecture firm suspended him. His investors pulled out. Valerie lost her gift penthouse. Turns out the deed was tied to my trust fund, which I froze the moment I found them together. But the real punishment wasn't financial. It was social. Friends they'd used for years blocked them. Colleagues called it karma. Even their favorite country club revoked their membership. In their world, reputation is everything. And I burned theirs to the ground. I didn't gloat. I didn't post screenshots. I simply moved on. I sold the engagement ring online and donated the money to a shelter for women rebuilding after betrayal. Valerie texted me daily, "Please forgive me." I was jealous. "I'll do anything." I never replied. Forgiveness is an ode to those who see you as a stepping stone. It's a gift, and I chose not to give it. 6 weeks later, I saw them together at a coffee shop in Denver. Valerie in a cheap dress, Daniel with a beard, both looking smaller. He saw me and looked down. She pretended not to notice. I kept walking. That's when I knew I'd won. Not because they suffered, because I no longer cared. In my family, the golden child always got the spotlight. But the quiet one, she got freedom. A year later, I bought a small house in Portland, not grand like the family estate, but mine. No staff, no expectations. Just Jasmine on the porch and silence on Sunday mornings. I started a foundation called New Beginnings, helping women navigate financial abuse, emotional manipulation, and the slow violence of familial betrayal. "How did you find your strength?" they ask. I tell them, I stopped asking for permission to exist. I don't date, not because I don't believe in love, but because I know love shouldn't require surveillance. If a man can't be trusted alone with my sister, he doesn't deserve to be alone with me. My mother calls every Sunday. We don't talk about Valerie. We talk about books, the weather, how her garden is thriving. It's a fragile piece, but it's ours. Sometimes I dream of the chapel, but in the dream I don't speak. I just smile as the recording plays and walk out, still in my wedding dress, into the storm. No one follows, and I don't look back. I keep the USB drive in a drawer, not as a trophy, as a reminder. The truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs a microphone and one person brave enough to press play. I don't hate Valerie. Hate is a chain, and I've cut mine. But I don't miss her either. The sister I loved died the moment she chose my fiancé over me. What's left is a stranger who shares my DNA. Women message me daily. "Your story gave me courage to leave." I canceled my wedding after watching this. I finally told my parents the truth. That's the real victory. Not revenge, but ripple effects. So if you're watching this and feel trapped in your own family drama, know this. You are not the problem. You are the solution. And your silence, it was never weakness. It was the calm before the storm you created. I still wear white sometimes. Not for weddings. For power. Because the woman who walked out of that chapel in white didn't lose a husband. She found herself. This story isn't about a wedding ruined. It's about a life reclaimed. So many of us are taught that family loyalty means swallowing betrayal, that love means enduring the unbearable. But real love doesn't demand your silence. It honors your voice. If you see yourself in Claire's story, if your trust has been weaponized, your kindness exploited, know this. You are not broken. You are being tested. And the moment you chose truth over peace, you won. Thank you for listening to the end. If this story moved you, like this video, subscribe, Tell me your city and state in the comments. Because here, every voice is a key, and every silence a choice. Until the next truth,